Cool. Working, give an F in the chat or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, give it a fucking Z in the chat. I don't fucking know. Just tell me if it's working or not, yeah? If it's working, let me know. If it's working, let me know. If it's working, let me know. Is it working? Let me know. Yeah, it's working. Right, so I'm gonna put a song on first. This song is just a massive coincidence. Don't accuse me of anti-Semitism. This is not anti-Semitism. It's just
LXM versus Mark van Dam. Gonna rock ya. Hava, Magila. And clap.
Hello everyone, so today I watched a video by Navarra Media and I thought we could go over it because it's a video that's going to allegedly refute the idea that the white working class are the worst off in England. So I thought we'd go over it together. Where is it now? I'll put it on now. We'll watch it together. Watch it together, innit?
I might be the wrong message carrier for this video. The work.
Yes, you are the wrong message carrier for this video. Not because you're non-white, but because you're part of the bourgeois intelligentsia. But anyway, let's hear what this shit lib has got to say.
Working class have found a new champion. It's the Conservative Party.
Ooh, you suck!
Despite having overseen decades of anti-trade union legislation, deindustrialisation and attacks on the social safety net, the Conservative government and their supporters in the media have managed to present themselves as the real political home of the English working class.
The Conservative Party is now the party of the working.
I'm just going to say straight off that she's kind of right, to be fair. Like, if you believe that the Conservative Party or the party of the working class, you're fucking gladly mistaken. The same applies to the Labour Party as well, because they deny basic facts like this, and they have neglected the white working class. But anyway.
Working person, the working class.
Why do you think the modern left loathes the working class?
The liberal British left have actually come to openly despise working people.
The Labour Party in recent years has increasingly become a party of social activists, student radicals, middle class liberals.
Labour no longer represents the British white working class because it doesn't want to.
They stab the working classes in the back. Labour is now an anti-working class party.
It's the Conservatives who are the real party of Labour. We are the Workers' Party.
Over the last 20 years, the left vote has strengthened in cities and university towns, but weakened in many of the old industrial heartlands. But rather than that being explained by industrial decline, the distribution of home ownership and average voter age, the right, and bits of the reactionary left, think they've nailed the culprit.
Critical race theory and identity politics.
Ultra woke identity politics.
Defund the police.
Let me know when it's back on. Let me know, please. Should be back on in a minute. It should. Yeah, we're back on. Right, anyway, where were we? We'll get back on it.
Party of social activists, student radicals, middle class liberals.
Labour no longer represents the British white working class because it doesn't want to.
They stab the working classes in the back. Labour is now an anti-working class party.
It's the Conservatives who are the real party of Labour. We are the Workers' Party.
Over the last 20 years, the left vote has strengthened in cities and university towns, but weakened in many of the old industrial heartlands. But rather than that being explained by industrial decline, the distribution of home ownership and average voter age, the right, and bits of the reactionary left, think they've nailed the culprit.
Critical race theory and identity politics.
Ultra woke identity politics.
Defund the police.
Black Lives Matter.
Trans activism.
Anti-police.
Social activists.
Anti-capitalism.
Greta Thunberg.
Come on, you bastard. Just killed a man. Put a gun against his head. Pull the trigger, now he's dead. Just killed a man. Right, anyway, we're back. So, finishing off where she was from, she was saying, yeah, it's true, it's like intersectionality, critical race theory, all this sort of bollocks does distract people from talking about real issues, that being class is important. Talk about economics. The left no longer talk about economics, they talk about intersectionality and critical race theory, and this serves the elites. It serves the elites because every time you're talking about that bollocks, you're not talking about real issues that affect the working class, and you allow them to continue on exploiting not only the people of this country but the entire planet.
Woke nonsense that is absolutely gripping the current left of this country.
The idea is that we've all become obsessed with identity issues and ignore class. Particularly, we ignore the white working class. The same politicians who voted for cuts to schools funding and against free school meals now highlight the educational underachievement of white British children from deprived households as evidence that A, institutional racism ain't all it cracked up to be, and B, even talking about racism has actively held back white kids from poor backgrounds.
The plight of white working class boys still seems to be an unfashionable one, but these young men have some of the worst life chances of any group anywhere in our country.
White working class boys massively underperform at every stage of the education system.
Ideas like
toxic masculinity, white privilege, they are, I would suggest, incredibly unhelpful terms. And the last thing I think these kids really need is another reason to feel bad about who they are.
In June, a parliamentary committee even released a report claiming that terms such as white privilege have contributed to the disadvantage of white children who are eligible.
They didn't claim it, they proved it. Right, so yeah, they proved it. They proved this is the case. I'll provide the data in a moment, but I'm going to allow her to show her data, which is quite interesting to say the least. Very
Eligible
interesting.
for free school meals. So, is this all true? Well, the answer is a bit of yes and a bit of that's bullshit. It's true that white British children eligible for free school meals make up the largest disadvantaged group. But that's also because we live in a white majority country. 14% of white...
Well, it's a good job that that's not what the data is talking about. If you actually look at the data, it compares like for like. It compares white working class people in comparison to black working class people, Pakistani and Bangladeshi. It compares like for like. It's not making the claim that the majority of white working class people are less. That's not the claim they're making. But anyway.
British children are eligible for free school meals. But that goes up to 21% for Pakistani children, 26% for Bangladeshi children, 28% for Black Caribbean children, and 37% for Gypsy or Roma children. And free school meals aren't the only way to measure deprivation. If we're looking at the poverty line,
Wait a second! What is this sauce you're using? You are using the Runnymede sauce. Well, it's a good job. I've got also... Let's have a look at the Runnymede sauce. Runnymede Trust. Let's have a look at them. The Runnymede Trust is a race equality think tank. It was founded in 1968 by Jim Rose and Anthony Lester. If there's any Wignats in the chat, can you guess the ethnicity of these two people? And if there's any socialists in the chat, can you guess what their their economic background is? So let's have a look at Jim Rose. Jim Rose was born into an elite Jewish family. So if you're a Wignat, that's that text. If you're a socialist, yeah, he was born into an elite Jewish family. Anthony Lester. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, he was born in an elite background as well. Let's have a look at his early life. Lester was born into a Jewish family. Oh, okay, that's interesting. That's really fucking interesting. So far we've got two Jewish capitalists. Let's have a look at their funding. See who funds them. Have I got that saved? Joseph Roundy Charitable Trust. Okay. Where is it? Okay, it isn't there. Alright, let's have a look at the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust. Okay. In fact, we will search Google for that. The Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust. Okay. Joseph. Okay. Okay, so, yeah. About us, our history and heritage. Oh, Quakers, the eternal fucking Quakers. Goddamn Quakers. The Alstheimer Fairbairn Foundation. Who are they? Let's search Google for that. We've got the Air Sabal. Okay. Some shitlib. Who funds them? Okay. Working in collaboration. About Esther Farm. Okay. Diversity, equity and inclusion. So I think we can establish that this source has got a little bit of bias behind them. Just a little bit of bias. I'd say that's fair to say. A little bit of bias. The Paul Hamlin Foundation. Okay. Let's have a look at the Paul Hamlin Foundation. Paul Hamlin. German-born British philanthropist. Yeah. Some bourgeois capitalist again. Let's have a look again. See what other sources we've got. The Unbound Philanthropy. That's weird. I can't find a link for it. Weird. However, I did save a website. Let's click on the website. This is called influencewatch.org, and it tells you about dodgy websites, like dodgy people who fund people. And weirdly enough, whenever you click on Influence Watch, Unbound Philanthropy, it doesn't allow you to click on the website. It doesn't work. Luckily for you, the viewer, I found a way around this, and I found a way of getting to the website. So let's have a look at... Actually, before we find out, let's have a guess in the chat. Who do you think funds the Unbound Philanthropy charity? Have a guess. Let's have a guess. Who do you think? Have a guess in the chat. Have a guess. Who do you think funds them? You'll be very surprised. You'll be very surprised. Do you reckon it's a socialist or a capitalist? Or do you think it's a very specific capitalist? Okay, so let's have a look. Let's see who funds Unbound Philanthropy, who funds Runnymede Trust. Let's have a look. Okay, it's interesting. Location, New York. They're tax exempt, they don't have to pay any tax. Fucking assets are $144 million. Type, left-wing donor affinity group. Unbound has close ties to George Soros's Open Society Foundation through the group's executive director. Open Society Foundations, where she worked with immigrants and refugee issues. That's interesting. Listen, guys, I know it's funded by the George Soros Foundation, and notable funders of Unbound Philanthropy include William Reeves and Deborah Berger. Deborah Berger are a married couple who are financiers who co-founded Blue Crest Capital Management, a hedge fund that manages tens of billions of dollars for clients all over the world. He sits on a board of Third Way, and he has close links to the Democrat Party. Fucking hell. So, yeah. I'm just going to say, as Sarkar, your sources are a bit fucking dodgy. A little bit dodgy. A little bit dodgy. Oy vey indeed. Oy vey indeed. What's next? We got Barrow Cadbury Trust. Let's search them. Who are the Barrow Cadbury Trust? Okay. let's look at this source. There's an independent charitable foundation committed to bringing justice about socially just change. Okay, let's see if about you. I want to know about you. Okay. Oh, Quaker roots again. Fucking Quaker problem. Someone needs to talk about the Quaker problem. I'm telling you. Next one is Langley Chase. Who are Langley Chase? Let's have a look at Langley Chase. Who are Langley Chase? Foundation and Network. Okay. Fuck me. Look at all their connections. Fucking hell, they all look white, don't they? All look white as fuck. Right, so far we've got a bunch of capitalists runs the Runnymede Trust. Yeah, they're so generous. All of these Jewish capitalists funding this research that completely BTFOs the data.
57% of black children, 54% of Pakistani children, and 60% of Bangladeshi children live below it, compared to 23% of white children. So while most poor children in the UK are white British, a child is more likely to live in poverty if they're from a number of ethnic minority backgrounds. And yes, it's true that white British children eligible for free school meals are slightly less likely to get passing grades than some other ethnic groups. All genders, and black African boys are less likely to meet the government's GCSE benchmark than their white British peers. Now, this isn't about playing Oppression Olympics or even saying...
Well, luckily for you, right? If you actually look, I found you in a meta-analysis, Ash Sarkar, right? If you're not familiar with what a meta-analysis is, a meta-analysis looks at all possible data and all the data on this subject. And where is it? Oh, here it is. This is a, well, we'll let her finish her fucking spiel.
Saying that class is secondary to race. It's saying that it doesn't make sense to pit deprived children against each other to compete for resources, when across every single ethnic group, kids who are eligible for free school meals do worse than children from wealthier backgrounds.
Well, that's why, right? This is why, right? We look at this data, and this data doesn't look at only free school meals. In fact, I'll read it for you. We'll go over there. Zoom in a bit so you can see. This is a meta-analysis provided by King's College London. It's not provided by the George Soros Foundation. It's not provided by the Runnymede Trust. It was funded by they are a think tank that have a bias, which they are looking for data that confirms what they already believe. That's the source that Ash Sarkar is using. I'm not using that. I'm using a meta-analysis from King's College London, and this is funded by, well, it's researched by free academics. Yeah, and if you go to it, and I'll actually prove it. So we'll go to the methodology first. Okay, so where is it? I'll get to the point where it talks about this. Where is it? It's a methodology. So the methodology, I'll read it to you. We'll get to it. Where are we? Defining the white working class. So I'll read it here. It says, defining working class differ within the literature and the broadly related to one or more following criteria: free school meals, parental occupation, household income, parental uptake of state benefits, group experiencing limited social mobility. Likewise, practitioners at our roundtable cited the following range of additional measures they used to identify white working class: home postcode, index of multiple deprivation scores, receipt of education maintenance, attendance at low progression schools. So they used more what's the word I'm looking for? They had a more developed criteria rather than using just free school meals or people who are just at the poverty line. This data that I'm using now, this meta-analysis, they clearly added more variables. They added how many variables? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 variables, not just free school meals. It was a really, really good piece of data. So I'm not going to go through all of this with you, but we'll get to their conclusion to see what they say. To see if they confirm that white working class boys are worse off. Where are we? Hold on, what, sorry. Actually, we'll go over it. We'll go over it. May as well. I've got fuck all else to do. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I'm just going to get to the spicy bits. So this is a meta-analysis. You know, it's more. What's the word I'm looking for? More developed. White working class pupils are the lowest performing group in our education system. The gap in performance between white working class pupils and their peers from other ethnic backgrounds and socio-economic groups exists at age 5 and widens throughout compulsory education. Although there is a social class gradient in educational attainment from pupils from all ethnic groups, the effect of socio-economic status is particularly more pronounced for white British pupils. Higher education has financial costs, and without additional support or allowances, the cost is proportionally greater for families on lower incomes. Yeah, we get that already. What have we got here? I want to get to the point. So here's one. Middle and working class families have access to different forms of cultural capital, sets of ideas, tastes, preferences and tendencies to act in particular ways in particular situations. Middle class parents are likely to be able to pass on forms of cultural capital that increase their child's success in education, whereas working class parents lack this privilege. I want to get to the way it talks about white though. Where are we? So it says here, white working class boys are the lowest performing group in our education system. This is considerable barrier to entry in higher education. It says here, financial costs of university are significant, barrier to white working class boys. However, this where I want to get to, where is it? Research suggests that white working class boys are more likely to hold negative perceptions and misconceptions about universities compared. Well, of course they fucking have. The entire system is rigged against them. It's anti-fucking white. This is interesting. Is the problem more acute in elite institutions? Let's get to the summary. So here it goes. White working class boys experience barrier to entry both at the application and admission stages at these institutions. The barriers are weaker for white working class boys and higher attainment in grades. So yeah, it's even worse in elite institutions. Anyone up for a bombing? Let's get to the what we'll get to the conclusion. If you want to read this, just fucking get the link. Oh, this is the summary. Despite the government's focusing on widening participation to white working class boys, fewer higher educations formally document the WP activities they are targeting specifically at this group. The literature, roundtable and case studies identify the following. So they're admitting that higher education institutions are failing to document how they're trying to help white working class people. They're not even attempting to do it. So where are we? Let's get to conclusion. I'll get to conclusion so I can fuck off. Actually, let's read this. Okay, where are we? University of Wales. What's it say here? Okay. Look at this. The lacking clear definition of white working class means the identification of this group is unreliable. So they're just, you know, they're not even acknowledging they fucking exist. Let's get to the conclusion. White working class boys are significantly underrepresented in higher education. Only 10% of the most disadvantaged white working class boys participate in higher education, significantly below the participation rates of disadvantaged white girls. Disadvantaged boys from other ethnic groups and their peers from more advantaged backgrounds. The government's recent shift in focus towards the status of white working class boys in higher education is therefore well founded. However, there is a pressing need for a more detailed understanding of the underlying causes of this problem. That's pretty fucking clear why they're not involved. It's just going to be all shit lib recommendations. We know what the fucking problem is. The problem is the fucking institutions alienate white working class boys, don't represent them in any way, treat them as a fucking enemy, and no one represents them. So there we go. It's the end of the stream now. I've got to go.